When a woman wants money more than love.
This was a man living in fear that knew his life was short.
Sacred vows can be broken.
Why does she have to be with us all the time?
These are two very sadistic, heartless women.
And lives shattered.
If he was conscious at all, it would have been terrifying.
For these deadly women, seduction is a means to an end. They love to death. In her Gaithersburg home in Maryland, Josephine Gray conjures up her latest spell.
She believed she had special powers. And she made other people believe it as well.
Josephine's a voodoo queen. Her world is dominated by black magic.
Josephine Gray had a strong enough and manipulative enough personality to control a lot of people and to control them with fear.
In 1974, her first husband, Norman Stribling, fears her power.
He found voodoo passages indicating that she was going to bring harm to him. He saw his name written down with all kinds of ingredients for cooking up voodoo concoctions to kill him.
But Josephine's real power isn't magic. It's lead.
For all the voodoo magic that Josephine practiced, she ultimately resorted to a simple gun.
One night he woke up, sat up in his bed, and there she was sitting up with a gun pointed right at his head. This was a man living in fear that knew his life was short.
Norman's worst fears soon come true.
He was found along a road in the early morning hours, and he was shot in the head. Clear homicide.
Ooh, we can pay down cash on that condo. Love it.
Norman's murder gives Josephine a handsome life insurance payout.
Sure did.
Enough for a new beginning with her secret lover, Robert Gray.
Josephine liked to control men. The pattern shows that when men were no longer enamored with her, she would move on. The original investigation back then clearly pointed to Josephine Gray. Whether she actually pulled the trigger, I don't know, but I think she was there.
Josephine isn't charged. No one is. There's not enough evidence, and potential witnesses won't help the police.
The witnesses were definitely afraid of her. Some of the family members believed in voodoo and her voodoo power. They were afraid of her and of retribution by her.
Robert and Josephine stay together for 16 years. But then, as before, she takes a new lover, Clarence Good.
Josephine! Hey! Get out! Get out or I'm gonna shoot you!
They were having an affair. They were sleeping together.
And once again, she uses the new to get rid of the old.
It seems that Josephine couldn't kill a husband without the help of a current lover. Then that lover would become her next husband.
Robert was driving down the road. They pulled up alongside of him, and Clarence was like hiding in the seat. And then when he pulled up, he pointed a gun at Robert, and Robert, slammed on the brakes and turned the car around and, to get away from them.
The threat is taken seriously. And this family is on edge. Even Josephine's own son fears Robert's life is in danger.
I think my mother's gonna kill my stepfather, Robert Gray. It's gonna be hard for you.
He goes to the police.
It was bizarre. He said that, I think my mother is gonna kill my stepfather. We really think by her behavior, she's getting ready to kill him.
Well, why doesn't your stepfather come in and talk to us about it?
Robert was nervous because there was an allegation that he was involved in the death of her first husband.
Detective Joe Mudano convinces Robert to talk to him.
Mudano.
I want to come and talk to you guys.
When I spoke to him, he, to me, appeared to be a nervous wreck.
Scared of her. Okay, fair enough.
She got a new lover.
But the police investigation will be too late.
He knew it was coming. It looks like he was ambushed. They came home after work, and somebody was hiding in one of the bedrooms and just shot him with a .45 caliber gun.
Two of Josephine's husbands are murdered in cold blood. But the police still don't have enough evidence to build a case.
I felt, bad about this. She was the obvious suspect. I do my job because I don't like people that kill other people, hurt other people. My job is to make the streets safe for people.
This voodoo queen is far from finished with love or death.
Now, whatever made those men feel safe with Josephine is beyond me. No one was safe when Josephine was around. No one.
In Gaithersburg, Maryland, Josephine Gray's husbands have a habit of turning up dead. And with each death, Josephine gets an insurance payout.
Josephine Gray is one of the more fascinating murderers I've ever studied. She was clever, attractive, she was manipulative. She was successful at doing what she did best, which was murdering husbands.
Many in her family believe she is the killer. But Josephine keeps them silent with the threat of black magic, voodoo.
They were afraid of her. They thought she had powers.
With no witnesses and little evidence, murder charges won't stick.
It just kind of eats at you that this woman did this. It's obvious. Everyone in her family knew she did it. We knew she did it.
Detective Mudano, determined to break the case,
I don't know what you're talking
appeals to the next potential victim, Josephine's latest lover, Clarence.
What makes you think you're so special?
We talked to Clarence and said, look at the first two husbands. When the relationships went sour or she met somebody else, look at their fate. What makes you think that you're so special. And he didn't want to hear any of that.
6 years later, in 1996,
Yeah, that's correct.
the prediction comes true.
It seems that every man that got involved with Josephine ended up on the wrong side of a gun.
Her third partner and a third insurance payout.
It isn't right, that these three guys are dead. They knew they were going to get it and told everyone they were going to get it, and we can't do anything about it.
Frustrated, but not defeated, Detective Mudano has an idea. If state authorities can't do anything, maybe federal authorities can.
It's not typical for the United States to get involved in state murder prosecutions. And the trick was figuring out what federal crime had been committed, as there's not a general federal murder statute.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Sandra Wilkinson makes an incredible discovery. The key to catching Josephine is not murder, but fraud.
I began looking at the reason why she murdered Norman, why she would have murdered Robert, and why she murdered Clarence. And the first place I looked was to determine if there were insurance policies on their lives, and there was.
This is good.
Now a fraud prosecution will become a de facto murder trial.
We had to prove a fraud theory under something called the Slayer's Rule.
The Slayer's Rule is a law that makes it illegal to receive an insurance payout if you cause the claim.
For example, if you burned down your car and then submitted an application to get your car insurance because your car was burned down and you did the arson, you can't get paid for that.
If they can prove Josephine kills her husbands and lover to claim their life insurance, she can be convicted.
Okay, Andre, we believe that Josephine killed her first two husbands.
To help build the case, Detective Mudano works on Josephine's latest lover, Andre.
Well, she told me she did.
He finally admitted to us that she told him that she had killed her other husbands. He also admitted that he had seen her with this .45 caliber gun.
Were you also aware that she took out a life insurance policy on you?
We also told him, did you know that she was trying to take a life insurance policy out on you, which he had no idea.
Police convince Andre to testify at the fraud trial. And that, along with Josephine's history, creates a convincing case.
The jury was instructed, you cannot convict her of fraud if she did not commit these murders. No murder, no fraud.
In a state trial, only one murder case could be tried at a time. But the federal fraud case allows all three to be presented.
You can imagine if you're a juror, the opening, you hear one husband is killed, that's bad luck, that's unfortunate. Second husband is murdered, that's kind of, you raise your eyebrows. Third?
In 2002, the jury finds Josephine Gray guilty of all 8 counts of fraud.
There was a way to prosecute Josephine Gray, even if there wasn't a federal murder statute.
The 55-year-old is sentenced to a total of 40 years behind bars and no chance of parole.
I think Josephine Gray is an evil person. To be able to kill people that you loved, people that you had children with, people that you lived with. If that's not evil, I don't know what's evil.
Almost 30 years after her first husband's murder, Josephine Gray finally gets her punishment.
Josephine probably thought she would never get caught had it not been for the tenacious behavior of the detective working this case. She might still be out there killing men today.
I was perfectly satisfied, but it just meant that she was going to probably die in prison.
When two women fall,
They refer to women like this as femme fatales.
for each other and money,
The self-indulgence, that's what life is about for them.
husbands can get in the way.
It must have been agony. That's all I can imagine.
February 5th, 2002. In a vineyard 40 miles south of Sacramento, California, a gruesome find.
The farm laborer happened to see vultures flying overhead. So he just went to see what the vultures were flying over.
It's the body of a hotshot attorney.
Well-to-do attorneys are not buried in vineyards.
Las Vegas, 1995.
Hi, I'm Larry McNabney. Call me.
Colorful, self-promoting attorney Larry McNabney is well known in the casino city.
All right, one more time.
He had a yellow page ad and television commercials.
Howdy.
These advertisements brought in many clients.
How was that?
He was extremely successful financially.
Hi. Larry McNabney.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Well,
With his law practice booming, he's hiring more staff.
ask you about yourself. That's good because we get a lot of
29-year-old Elisa Barish is quick to impress.
done pretty well, yeah.
Well, I'm a hard worker,
Yeah.
and I don't mind working overtime.
Oh, that's
Elisa had a gift, and it was the ability to figure people out very quickly. She was especially skilled at this when it came to men.
When can you start?
Whenever suits you, Larry.
Larry falls for her charm,
Whenever.
and he's not the first.
Tomorrow.
Can I call you Larry?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Elisa is a highly successful con artist.
Who was Elisa McNabney? Does anybody know? She was a woman who ultimately wound up going by about 30 different aliases and left a trail of men in her wake.
Elisa is soon hard at work, stealing clients' insurance payouts.
Without question, a major crime, a felony. She was compelled to offend society and society's rules. Why? Because she liked to.
But it is Larry in the hot seat.
Hey, guys, look, give me a little bit of time. Call someone. So
With tens of thousands missing,
Sorry, but even if I
authorities investigate him.
give me a bit of time, yeah.
Larry got in trouble with the state bar, and he was fined and penalized, and it was all Elisa's doing, but he covered for her.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, guys.
He should have put her in prison, but instead he was somehow attracted to this.
Larry not only forgives Elisa, he marries her. Once again, the con woman's charm works.
Did she love Larry? I think she loved his lifestyle. She loved being the center of attention.
To escape the fraud scandal, the couple moves to Sacramento, California.
Hi.
Larry opens a new law practice
How are you fitting in?
and incredibly, again puts Elisa in charge of the accounts.
Nice. So, you like shopping?
Elisa takes a shine to their office assistant,
I love shopping.
Sarah Dutra.
When Elisa and Sarah met, the sparks were flying.
Don't you two have any work to do?
We're just about to pop out for a bite to eat and a little bit of shopping.
They immediately cared for each other a lot. I think Sarah became Elisa's protege. It was someone Elisa could mold and play with.
Bye-bye. That looks amazing. Oh, it's gorgeous. You look gorgeous.
And for Sarah, she had in front of her this great teacher.
Hello.
Soon the master and her apprentice are robbing Larry blind.
They cashed clients' checks rather than giving it to the clients who were entitled to a settlement check.
And they become lovers.
You making lots of money for us? Lots and lots, honey.
They were, during this period, draining Larry's accounts dry to the tune of over $500,000.
Okay, I've got 7 for you.
Larry has no idea money is being stolen.
Thank you.
He's more concerned about the other woman in his marriage.
Larry wasn't happy with the relationship between Elisa and Sarah. He didn't like this anymore. His wife was changing, his life was changing.
But the women aren't prepared to let Larry ruin a good thing.
They saw him as getting in the way, and the only way they can continue their lifestyle was to take him out of it.
Larry McNabney's law firm is being bled dry by his wife, Elisa, and her lover, Sarah Dutra.
Expensive restaurants, expensive clothes, expensive cars. That's the lifestyle they've come to be accustomed to.
Larry doesn't suspect the theft, but is tired of being the third person in his marriage.
Larry wasn't happy with the relationship between Elisa and Sarah.
But the women are one step ahead. They have a chilling plan to get rid of him.
Sarah Dutra looked on the computer,
Well, well. That is interesting.
looked up the effects of certain horse tranquilizers on human beings.
On Tuesday. All right.
Elisa's a seasoned con woman, but she's never gone this far.
The idea of giving someone horse tranquilizer still boggles my mind. I can't imagine that. Why would you do that?
September 10th, 2001. For one last time, Elisa deceives her husband.
Without question, Elisa was a heartless sociopath. She used and abused people.
I've made this for you.
Okay. Thanks.
For hours, the women feed Larry more and more of the paralyzing drug.
That should do it.
Okay.
This horse tranquilizer prevents you from moving. It's almost like going in for elective surgery and having the doctor operate on you, and you can feel everything, but you can't stop it. And this went on for 12 to 18 hours.
You're not gonna get away with this.
Oh, yes, we will.
Larry is still alive as the women drive him to his final resting place.
Can't even fathom what that would be like when you know that you're going to die. You're still mentally enough there to realize what's happening, but physically just totally incapable of responding to it.
I cannot imagine a worse way to die than the way Larry McNabney died.
Ugh, it's hard work.
Wait here. He liked wine, didn't he?
Eventually, Larry succumbs and is buried in a shallow grave in a local vineyard.
Yeah, that should do it.
Larry was killed because he got in the way. That's why. He was getting in the way of the relationship between Sarah and Elisa.
Now, for these calculating killers,
Hello?
it's back to business.
I'm sorry Larry isn't in the office today. Yes, I've got it right here.
Elisa McNabney and Sarah Dutra are telling people, well, he joined a cult. He's in Costa Rica. He joined the Krishnas in Washington. He's off at a rehabilitation center for alcoholics.
Sarah and Elisa were a toxic mixture. They continued to spend his money and to use his business to make more money for them to spend.
5 months after Larry goes missing, his body is found.
They did not dig the grave very deep because his bone from his leg ended up coming out of the earth. And eventually a farm worker noticed it.
Investigators began digging into the family, and they realized Elisa McNabney was not who she'd said she was.
Elisa's dodgy past and her multiple aliases set off alarm bells. Sarah is arrested, but Elisa has dumped her and is on the run.
The FBI and multiple law enforcement agencies, they began tracking her through Utah. They found traces of her in Oklahoma City and finally caught up to her in Florida.
Almost 6 months after the murder, Elisa McNabney is arrested.
Ma'am, you need...
Still enjoying the good life at a Florida resort.
I would not have expected a woman like Elisa to give up so easily. Maybe she was tired of running.
Sarah is already in custody. In March 2002, she's found guilty of voluntary manslaughter and accessory to murder. She is sentenced to 11 years in prison and is eligible for release in October 2011.
Sarah Dutra was equally guilty, and she should have been convicted of murder.
Elisa McNabney never stands trial. In a Florida prison, the 35-year-old commits suicide on Easter 2002.
The party was over. I think for Elisa, taking her own life on her terms was her last defiant act.
They both had their strengths, they both had their weaknesses, but they were both very cold.
These are two very sadistic, heartless women.
An eccentric millionaire is found dead in his home.
Bound, gagged, tied up with dog leashes.
The scene reeks of hard drugs and bondage.
He enjoyed being tied up and having kinky sex.
But this is no kinky sex game gone wrong. It's a cold-blooded, half-baked murder. Melbourne, Australia, 2000. Two seemingly mismatched people take a shine to each other. 33-year-old Shirley Withers is a bookkeeper. Not the type you'd expect to attract a playboy.
She was not tall, glamorous, the sort of person that you'd imagine a millionaire to take up with.
51-year-old divorcee Peter Shellard is a multi-millionaire property developer and luxury car dealer.
Peter Shellard basically was a self-made man. He was a member of the Rolls-Royce Club, and he had a lot of associates and friends there. Moved in a lot of circles.
Shirley is about to get a new, luxurious lifestyle. And all her dreams will be bankrolled. Peter Shellard's deep pockets allow him to indulge his new girlfriend.
Really? Do you like it?
Love it. When Peter met Shirley, he was apparently smitten. And one of the things he was willing to do was finance a boutique.
An upscale boutique in the upscale Melbourne suburb of Brighton.
You know, if you want to have a boutique in Melbourne, Brighton's the place to have it, especially when the investment is someone else's.
Peter was named as a shareholder in that business. Basically, he was a figurehead to the business, and it was Shirley that was running that business.
Seriously, Peter, tell me where we're going.
Just trust me, 2 steps up, got another one.
The big-ticket investment in Shirley continues.
Surprise!
What?
The house, I bought it for you.
Oh, what, really?
Yeah. Yeah, look, here's the keys.
Did you really buy this for me?
Yeah, you
It's
know,
not
it's
a
in my
love
name,
nest
but
for the
you live
two
here
of them
as long as you like.
because Peter wants to live separately.
It was an unusual relationship. She lived in a house that he had bought her or paid for, and then he lived in his own mansion doing his own things.
How's it going, sweetheart?
Fine.
In a final display of blind faith and bad judgment, Peter puts Shirley in charge of the books at his car dealership.
One of her jobs was to balance the books. She had access to the books of some of his more lucrative businesses, but she misused the trust he put in her, and eventually something went very, very wrong.
What goes wrong first is the boutique.
If she wanted stock, she would just order more, despite not having paid for the last bit of stock. The bills were mounting up.
The business is bleeding. Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
There was never enough money for anything. Goodness only knows where the money actually went.
Shirley succumbs to the lure of easy money.
And as a consequence of being such a bad businesswoman, Shirley, who was still doing the books for Peter, was writing cheques to herself on his bank accounts.
We estimate that she received about $900,000 in cash from that bank in her hand.
Stealing that much money doesn't go unnoticed for very long. Peter doesn't call in the police, but his accountant.
His accountant was very clear and said, look, you know, if you pursue this, Shirley Withers will be charged by the police. Peter Shellard said he was prepared to do that. He was going to go back and confront Shirley Withers about these monies.
Shirley, you've been cashing my checks, haven't you?
No,
What about the cost of my credit card?
I don't know anything about that.
I'm talking to the bank, Shirley. There's a lot of money missing, and I bet I know where it's gone.
Shirley's gravy train looks like it's leaving without her.
And that was just not quite what Shirley had in mind.
It's early May in Melbourne, Australia, 2005. Shirley Withers is robbing Peter Shellard, her millionaire boyfriend, to pay for her debts.
Peter had been very good to Shirley. He gave her a lot of money to start a business. She stole his credit cards and his checking account.
And she's been caught.
It's quite a bizarre thing because at no stage did she seem worried about the police. She just thought she was going to lose her quite lucrative meal ticket and that he would take away her home her boutique.
But Shirley's not going to let that happen. She befriends a couple, a world away from her high society life. Drug addict Stan Kolonikas and his girlfriend Sophie Stupas.
Shirley sought them out. She befriended them.
She gave them thousands of dollars worth of cash. She was wooing them, hoping to get a couple of allies in Sophie and Stan.
He ties me up and...
Shirley tells the couple tall tales about Peter. She claims he is into kinky sex.
Somebody should do those things to him.
And is abusing her.
Shirley admitted to her new friends that her super rich boyfriend would make her do things, that he would tie her up and force her to have sex in bondage positions. And Shirley didn't like it.
Yeah, no dramas. Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Whenever you want, we'll do it, yeah?
They latched onto her because she was a cash cow. She had a problem, and to keep their cash cow, they were just going to go along with what Shirley wanted.
Late Friday night, May 6th, 2005. The trio pays Peter a visit.
They wake Peter from a dead sleep. He, of course, fights back and he bites Sophia on the finger, and her reaction is to pick something up and hit him with it.
Peter Shellard had received a number of lacerations and cuts to the head, and that had caused a bleed to his brain. Further to that, he'd received a black eye, numerous injuries, defensive-type injuries to his forearm. He had other injuries where restraints had been placed on him.
Cousin! They dragged him onto the floor and they trussed him up like a pig. If he was conscious at all, it would have been terrifying.
Next, Shirley injects him with heroin to try and make it look like an overdose.
And gives a shot to poor Peter, who's still semi-conscious on the floor.
Then they give Peter another dangerous drug. This one is a suppository.
OxyContin is a very powerful synthetic narcotic pain reliever, and it is highly addicting.
It's a bad mix with heroin, especially for Peter, who has a weak heart.
Shirley knew all this about Peter. She knew that he had a heart condition.
Peter's left to die alone, while Shirley and her accomplices celebrate pulling off the perfect crime. It looks like Peter has died after a night of kinky sex and drugs gone wrong. Almost 12 hours later, Shirley calls the police.
Help me! Help!
She appeared genuinely upset about what she had found. We had no concerns about her behaviour. That's what we expected, someone who finds their partner dead in a room.
But if Peter has died from a rough sex game, who is his partner? Shirley denies it is her. And then in a fingerprint sweep, police find a potential suspect, a heroin addict with a criminal record.
That fingerprint came back as being one left by Sophia Stupas. So at this point, we believe that Sophia was involved in Peter Shellard's death. And because Sophia was, we believed that Stan would be there as well.
And so, of course, they came clean. We were there purely because Shirley asked us to help her teach this man a lesson.
The police believe the addict's story, but need more evidence. So they launch an audacious undercover sting operation with a fake hitman.
All right, well, I need photos of them.
And I need their address.
I can get you the address.
Okay, what do
An undercover policeman contacts Shirley and offers his services.
we put him in hospital?
Shirley Withers told the undercover police officer that she wanted 2 people that she knew who had killed her partner, Peter.
I want them dead.
Okay.
She wanted them dead.
Money.
I got the money.
It's my belief that she wanted them dead so that no one else knew of her involvement in his death.
Shirley's arrested and charged with her boyfriend's murder and 2 counts of incitement to murder her accomplices. Stanley Kolonikas and Sophie Stupas plead guilty to manslaughter and receive 6 years in jail. In 2007, Shirley chooses to go to trial.
She was convicted for the murder of Peter Shellard and also she pleaded guilty to the 2 incitements. She received a sentence of 26 years jail.
In a subsequent appeal, Shirley convinces a judge that she didn't mean to kill Peter, only teach him a lesson.
For some bizarre reason, her charge was changed to manslaughter on the grounds that she would have had no way of knowing how much heroin it would be required to kill him.
As a result, she was convicted of manslaughter. She subsequently received a 13-year jail term with 9 years of good behaviour.
Shirley's greed destroys her chance of living on Easy Street. With a generous boyfriend willing to make her dreams come true.
Shirley Withers has shown no remorse at all for what happened to Peter Shellard.
She is eligible for parole in 2016.
She had larceny in her heart, and there's no pill for that.
These women's greed made murder easy. Only insurance fraud stopped Josephine Gray from her next victim. To stay rich, Sarah Dutra and Elisa McNabney dispatched her husband like an animal. And Shirley Withers balanced her accounts with murder. For these deadly women, money was their desire, as they loved to death.